All right, welcome back to live streams, everybody. How are you doing? Dominican Stud says, good morning from Japan, Pete. Good morning to all. Salam alaikum, 2114. Are you Moroccan? We have a lot of Moroccan fans since the last two Youth World Cups. Aronson goal versus Man U is crazy. Hi, Pete. Your thoughts on Matarazzo staying in Europe and now coaching at Sociedad? He tied Atletico in his first game in charge. Yeah, I just finished watching it. Good for him, right? Getting an opportunity. Didn't want to come to MLS. Felt like he still had value in Europe, which clearly, Real Sociedad thinks he does. And now he's getting an opportunity, and a draw with Atletico Madrid is a great way to start. What's up, Pete? How are you doing this Sunday? I'm doing well. How are all of you guys doing? I know I've not been very consistent with these Sunday streams. There's been a lot going on in my life, and particularly just on different work fronts. It's been harder to keep up. But hopefully we're back this year. It's a big year for the channel, big year for soccer, for the U.S. men's national team. So here's kind of the plan. I'll tell you guys what Sunday is mostly going to look like from now on. Typically Sunday would be the top 10. And a lot of the time it will still be a top 10. However, sometimes if there isn't enough interesting things going on to create a compelling top 10, what I'm just going to do is this. I'm going to take 6 sort of topics, relevant topics that are happening in the world of soccer, and I'm going to just talk about them. And that's what I'm going to do today, because a lot of the leagues are not back yet. So that's it's either going to be 2 p.m. Pacific time, which is 5 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. It'll either be the top 10, or it'll just be my thoughts on some news or rumors or issues going on with American soccer. And I'll try to have them down there below so you can see what we're going to talk about today. How are you guys doing? What's up? You guys hanging at home? It's been raining for about 10 days here in LA. So it's been a lot. We don't usually get a ton of rain. And then when we do get it, it all gets dumped on us as once. Top 6, says J. Crew. Yeah, that's the move. Yeah, Jedi was very good against Liverpool today, too. McKennie was good this weekend. Balogun got an assist. So let's see what happens. Dry as on the front range. Where's the front range? Thoughts on Rydstrom to Crew? I think they should hold out. We'll talk about Wilfried Nancy a bit. I think the Crew should hold out. I mean, it might be a little weird now, but he may not last after the next game if he loses the next game, and we'll talk about that. Hit that like button if you haven't already, guys. There are a ton of people in the chat already, and I can't see how many likes. Oh, well. Anyways, hit that like button if you haven't already. And we're going to get started here. So, I had a match today. I was goalkeeper, lost 2-5. I did good, just lack of defense. That's awesome. Ooh, Dominican Stud. I tore my meniscus doing karate, and it sucks. Right as the snowboarding season started. I ain't even a pro athlete. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, tearing your meniscus or your ACL as a pro athlete is one thing. You're still getting paid. As a layperson who's just doing it for fun, it is, it's tough. Reina and Scally Ball late tonight. Wait, are they playing tonight? No, the Bundesliga doesn't start until next weekend. So, no, I don't think so. Unless there's a game, unless you're talking about a friendly game. Oh, do they play tonight? No, they don't. Yeah, hello, can you clarify what you mean? Because the Bundesliga doesn't start until next weekend. So just clarify what you mean by that. It's a friendly at 12:30 tonight? What time tonight? And where can we stream it? Give us more deets. Give us more deets. All right. But in the meantime, let's talk about what is happening these days in the world of soccer. And so for the first one, is Cole Campbell is pretty much confirmed going to Hoffenheim. It's been reported by several reliable sources, including Florian Petterberg. So it's an interesting one. Cole Campbell has not been getting minutes at Dortmund. Dortmund don't really play with wingers, for one thing. They play sort of a 3-4-2-1. On top of that, the guys that are more like winger style are playing basically the same thing the U.S. plays, with a 3-4-2-1. So those two tucked in wingers / attacking midfielders kind of playing in the half spaces. And to be fair, Campbell has not looked that good whenever he has played, and it's not like he was lighting up the youth teams necessarily when he was there either. There was rumors that came out. I don't know how true they are about maybe some misbehavior in training or whatever. But the point is, look, Stuttgart was interested and even actually agreed terms with Campbell last summer and wanted him. And then Dortmund persuaded him to stay and then just didn't use him at all. So kind of 6 months wasted. And then he went to the Under-20 World Cup where, to be fair, he did not look good. He looked terrible at the Under-20 World Cup. And he sort of is at that place in his life where he needs to leave Dortmund. He's not going to play there. Kovac doesn't really believe in young players. Generally speaking, he seems to prefer older heads. And for his own development, he needs to leave. Now, here's the problem. Not the problem. I am skeptical of this move. Let me explain it first. It's 1.5 million euro loan for the rest of the season with an optional 10 million transfer in the summer. For me, that's a lot for Cole Campbell. He would have to do really well, or they would have to see a lot of potential in him in the next 5 months, okay, in order for that one to go through. But it'll be interesting to see how he does. Now, a couple of things. Hoffenheim also play a 3-4-1-2, sort of. Or sometimes they play a 4-3-3. It sort of depends. They're sitting 5th in the Bundesliga, and here is where I am skeptical of this move. I think, based on what I've seen of Cole Campbell, that he's not necessarily ready for the Bundesliga, right? We saw at, the Under-20 World Cup that this guy clearly has a ways to go. He's a very good dribbler of the ball, but he has that problem that a lot of young dribblers have with their head down, looking at the ball, just dribbling into dead ends, never get their head up, never pass, never combine, never really are effective, okay? And so that's something that he's really going to have to work on. I don't know that the Bundesliga is his level right now, okay? I think he probably should have gone to Belgium. And there was interest from both Club Brugge and Anderlecht, which are two good Belgian clubs, Brugge playing in the Champions League. And I think that would have been a level where he could go at least for 6 months, and we could sort of try to understand Cole Campbell's level. We don't have a ton of Cole Campbell data, right? We don't have that. We have the Under-20 World Cup, which was terrible, but we haven't really seen him much for clubs, so it's hard to understand his level right now. But from what I've seen, I don't know that he's ready to be getting serious minutes for a team that's pushing for a Champions League spot in the Bundesliga yet. And so I am skeptical of this move. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I hope he goes out there and proves me wrong. He has things that he needs to work on, but maybe he also needs to be at a club that believes in him. And maybe Hoffenheim believes in him, and maybe this 6 months will do him a lot of good. I'll certainly be rooting for the guy. Now, he will have some competition there at Hoffenheim. Touré is there, and Lamperle is there. Now, that's when they play more in a 3-4-1-2. There is a chance, if they're playing 3-4-1-2 and Campbell's on the field, he'll be playing as one of the two strikers. So I think that could be quite interesting to see. Or if they play 4-3-3, then obviously he'll play on the wing. Campbell also needs to develop something of a right foot. He's very left-footed. And he really has one move, right? Try to cut in onto his left and shoot. When he tries to beat people on the right, he can do it, but then his crosses are extremely poor. So there's a lot of work for Cole Campbell to do, but ultimately I think getting out of Dortmund was a good thing. I just don't know that Hoffenheim was the level that he's ready for. But you know what? We'll get 5 months and seeing, how he does over there. You never know. Sometimes a change of scenery does wonders for a young player. So let's just wait and see what happens with Campbell. But at least step one, which was getting out of Dortmund, was a good thing. All right. Number 2 is Brenden Aaronson on the rise. So Brenden Aaronson, a much maligned player, including by yours truly, over the course of his career, has been playing really well recently for Leeds. The last 6 games, he has 3 goal contributions. It really started against Liverpool. Aronson took a lot of abuse in the first half of the season from his own fans, and they were booing him, and some of the abuse went beyond criticism, and it was not good, right? It was over the top, but there was a plenty to criticize him for. He was not playing well, and he always works hard, right? Energizer Bunny style, running up and down the field, willing to press, willing to defend, always trying to get stuck in. The problem was on the ball, he was almost useless, or I'll say ineffective. And a lot of that was down to two things. Brenden Aaronson is not a great dribbler of the ball. When he starts dribbling with the ball at speed, his balance is very poor. So under any kind of pressure, he will topple or at least bend in order to recover his balance. And the problem with Brenden was he wasn't a great dribbler, but oftentimes that's what he would do. He would take too long on the ball. He would take too long to make decisions. He would try to dribble around players or pass players. And then we would discover very quickly that, they could literally bump him off the ball. And he was a liability in that Leeds attack. What he has done, in my opinion, that has helped him these last 3 games where he came on, got 2 assists against Liverpool. He got an assist against Sunderland. And today, a very opportunistic goal against Manchester United with his left foot. And a lot of that was outrunning the defender, who was maybe a little bit too slow to get back on the ball. And he went and scored. And Leeds ended up winning 1-1. But it's not just that he's been getting these goal contributions. He's actually been playing better. And from what I have seen is he's been learning to make decisions and release the ball sooner. Because Brenden Aaronson, like I said, not an elite dribbler. So when he takes too long on the ball, he's easy to push off the ball. He easily loses his balance. But now he's making decisions a lot quicker, and his passing is getting better, and he's actually becoming more effective in that attack. I'm sorry, they didn't win. They drew 1-1. And credit to Aronson because, and I said this on Twitter today, there was multiple opportunities where the easy move for Brenden Aaronson would be to come back to MLS, get a fat DP contract. I'm sure somebody would have given it to him, right? And been a very good attacking midfielder in MLS, get regular call-ups, January camp, Gold Cup, no problem, right? But instead, over the course of his career, right, he went to Salzburg, had some success there. Went to Leeds, was okay at the beginning, but then got found out very quickly, got relegated with Leeds, then went over to Germany and tried his luck there on loan. Didn't work out. At that point, it's like, okay, maybe he should come back to MLS, or it would be easy to think that for him. But instead, he went back to the Championship and he continued to work, and now he's in the Premier League. And even though he struggled the first 6 months, he still keeps trying and he still keeps pushing himself, and he is being pushed every single day. This is why we don't want guys just coming back to MLS because one situation wasn't great. Now, look, if you have 7, 8, Ethan Horvath style where it's like clearly time to come back, but good for Brenden Aaronson for sticking it out, working hard, and trying to prove that he can still be a success at, European levels. And he is only 25 years old, right? So he is still young enough that he hasn't even hit his prime yet. And yes, he's got a ceiling, right? Aronson is never going to be an elite player or a world-class player by any means. But if he can maximize what he does well on the ball, then he can absolutely be a better player than he was before, and everybody wins. He wins. The national team wins. His club wins. So huge props to Brenden Aaronson for sticking it out, for working hard at what he does, and continuing to grow as a player because he's starting to reap the dividends of that. All right, guys, as you may know if you watched my last video, we have a new sponsor, and it is FanDuel. So FanDuel Sportsbook is where I've been sort of looking here. And it's just very, very straightforward. You basically get a game, and you get odds on the home win, a tie, or an away win, right? So, for example, Sassuolo and Juventus. Interesting one. Sassuolo are at home, okay? So you're talking about plus 39. All right, potentially. So if you put, $10 down, you'll make 39 times what you put down, right? And then, a tie is 270, and, Sassuolo winning, Juventus winning away, you're going to make 1.4, right? So, I mean, you guys know how this works. Sassuolo have drawn 3 out of their last 5 games. They're kind of draw specialists. So that 2-7 is looking pretty good, right? If you put, let's say I go 2-7 and I put $10 down, you win $27, right? Not a lot of money, but, it can kind of add a little bit of fun to a game. Bologna-Atalanta, interesting one. Napoli-Verona. I mean, this one's very interesting because Napoli are in very good form at the top of the table, and Verona are, I think, 18th in Serie A. They're in the relegation spot, right? But the chances of Verona beating Napoli are poor, right? But if I try to give that one a go and say, oh, Verona's going to win, now we're talking about $75. So it's some interesting odds in the Serie A. Now, guys, obviously, as I said and have said before, don't go betting a ton of money. If you have addictive tendencies, don't do it, okay? Because it's not good if you start doing it all the time and losing money. The idea is to throw $5 or $10 onto a game once in a while and make it a little more interesting and fun. Or if you see some really interesting odds, have fun with it. Don't go crazy, okay? All right. Thank you, though, to FanDuel for sponsoring the channel. Next up, and this is a very interesting development, guys, is Mathis Albert close to the Dortmund first team. Now, for those of you who don't know Mathis Albert, he has 18 goal contributions in Dortmund's youth teams in half a season. And by the way, that is in 19 games. In 19 games, this guy has 18 goal contributions. Most of them were either in the UEFA Youth League or the Under-19 League at 16 years old, by the way. But he did also have one for the Under-23s in some Premier League Academy competition for Under-21s. So he's been playing up, and he's supposed to spend the rest of this season with the Under-23s. Okay? Now, he also had a goal and assist in the Under-17 World Cup, for those of you who remember that. Now, what's interesting is him and Samuel Ignacio, an Italian sort of 10 player who's also been doing well with their Under-19s, and Musa Kaba, who's sort of a very good 6. They've all been doing well in the youth teams. They've all been promoted to go to Marabella, which is Dortmund's basically pre-training camp before the second half of the season starts. And there were reports for a while that wasn't going to happen, and now it looks like it is. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean much, okay? But, and like I said, Mathis Albert is a winger. Dortmund don't play with wingers. They play with a 3-4-2-1. But the guys who are normally wingers tend to play in that 2 behind the striker for Niko Kovac's system. What I find interesting is that with Campbell gone, very likely Duranville is leaving. Even in Marabella, he's not fully training because they don't want him to get injured, so it looks like he's leaving. And there's also a possibility that Karim Adeyemi is leaving too, which might leave some space, at least on the bench, for one of these young guys, whether it's Ignacio or Albert. Kuba could even be with the first team the second half because of Özcan leaving. We'll see. Although Niko Kovac seemed to pour cold water on that. Is there a chance that Mathis Albert could make his Dortmund debut before the season is over? I would say it's unlikely unless they have. So if these 3 guys leave, if Campbell leaves, Campbell's gone. If Duranville leaves and Adeyemi leaves, and Dortmund have 1 or 2 injuries, there could be some space. But 2 things would have to happen. Number 1, Albert would have to look really good in training right now and with Marabella. Number 2, he would probably have to light it up with the Under-23s in the second half of the season and kind of see how he does there. That'll be very interesting. He made his debut, I think, back in December, which, again, I know it's the Under-23s, but this kid is 16 years old, so keep that in mind. Then if both of those things happen and Kovac has a bit of a change of heart, is there a chance that he could make a late debut? But even if he doesn't, keep in mind, Pulisic made his debut for Dortmund at 17 years and 133 days old. Reyna made his debut at 17 years and 66 days old. Okay. Albert is currently 16 years and 228 days old. So he's sort of on the same trajectory that Pulisic and Reyna were on when they broke through at Dortmund, which I find quite interesting. So even if he doesn't make it, he's going to turn 17 on May 21st, which is like the end of the season. I think they have 1 game after that. So even if he doesn't debut this season and he debuts early next season when he is expected to be with the first team, he will still be on the same sort of pathway or trajectory that Pulisic and Reyna were on at Dortmund, which is very, very encouraging. And certainly he's very highly regarded at Dortmund. So we're just going to kind of have to watch what happens with the rest of this season. There is, however, a small chance that Mathis Albert could become the youngest American to ever make his debut for Dortmund. He could be younger than Reyna when he makes his debut, if he makes it before the end of this season. Now, season starts in August, again, mid-August, so you're talking June, July. If he doesn't make it this season, he is going to be younger. He'll be older than Reyna was when he makes his debut, but there's still a very good chance he could beat Pulisic. So very interesting. We'll see how he looks with the Under-23 team, and we'll see what Kovac says after this season has gone by. Let's talk about Wilfried Nancy. Now, this is not USMNT related, but it is MLS related, okay? Wilfried Nancy, the French coach, who is widely considered, and probably is, one of the best coaches in MLS, went to Celtic after Brendan Rodgers resigned, due to some bad form, and Martin O'Neill came in and sort of, was a caretaker manager for a while. Wilfried Nancy came in and has managed to lose 6 out of 8 games since taking over. Now, the team has also not looked very good, right? One thing I have heard is give him time. And to a degree, that's fair. You should give coaches a certain amount of time. But some people say, well, give him time. Martin O'Neill has had as many games as Nancy has had and managed to win 7 out of 8. Nancy has managed to lose 6 out of 8. So he's only won 2 out of 8. The idea that you need more time, when you think about it, doesn't really make sense if Martin O'Neill had the exact same roster and the exact same amount of time and managed to do that well. Wilfried Nancy, on the other hand, the complete opposite, with the same roster and the same amount of time. There are several problems here. Nancy is the system coach, right? He likes his 3-4-3, his 3-4-2-1. And that's what he wants to play at Celtic. The problem is it's not working. Celtic have played in a back four since forever. So he's coming in and trying to change things to do it his way, which is not what is working, and he's not changing. And it's arrogant and it's naive. Okay, it's arrogant and it's naive because you're going into a job like Celtic. This isn't the Columbus Crew. This isn't MLS. Okay, now you can argue, actually, if you take Rangers and Celtic out and maybe Hearts, most of the Scottish League is not very good. It's worse than MLS on some levels. But the problem is you have more pressure than you do in MLS. This is Celtic. They're accustomed to winning games. They're used to winning the league every year. Okay, they have to. So you have to go in there and understand what your job is. You're not there to pontificate about playing styles and sell dreams. You're there to win points. You can do all the playing style stuff and all of that stuff when you're winning. But when you're not winning, you can't be like stubborn and naive and frankly a little bit arrogant. Here's the problem. Whether it's fair or not, this is going to reflect badly on every MLS coach. MLS coaches do not get opportunities in Europe. Nobody takes MLS coaches seriously. Players, sure. Young players, getting developed, going to MLS, receive regular transfers to Europe, no problem. Coaches don't get opportunities. And, with exceptions, like let's say Jesse Marsch. First of all, Jesse Marsch was together with RB Leipzig. That's what got him to Europe. Number two, he went and was an assistant coach first at Leipzig for 6 months, and then he started off at Salzburg, and then slowly worked his way up. And frankly, he kind of failed in Europe, right? Fired at Leipzig after less than 2 months, fired at Leeds. And now he's back in CONCACAF coaching Canada. All right, so that didn't look very good for MLS coaches. Now, Wilfried Nancy going to Scotland and failing so far very massively, very publicly, and being arrogant and naive about it. It's not good. It's not good for the perception of MLS coaches. And I'm sorry, in MLS, you don't have pressure. There's no promotion relegation. 60% of the league makes the playoffs. And frankly, if you finish in the top 60% of your conference, that's considered a successful season. So you can afford to pontificate and talk about style and wanting to play all this pretty soccer. And you don't need to worry about winning. I've been to MLS games where the team loses and gets applauded off the field. Nancy is not used to this kind of pressure that he's facing at Celtic, and it's clearly getting to him. And their next game is next Saturday, I believe. If they lose that game, I think he's done. You go to Celtic to win. This is a club that has the best roster, that wins every year. All the excuses about how he needs time or how he, wasn't able to bring in his own players are not going to matter because the exact same thing, the exact same players with the exact same amount of time with Martin O'Neill managed to win 7 games. And that's the job. If you don't want the pressure of needing to win, don't take the Celtic job. Stay in Columbus, where you are loved and where you can pontificate and where, you don't have to win a trophy every single year. And so that's just the truth, and that's just reality. It's why MLS coaches are not taken seriously of, you know, outside of MLS. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And he had an opportunity to put his stamp not only for himself, but for the rest of MLS and say, hey, maybe there's coaching talent in MLS. Well, he just set MLS back by about 15 years. So we'll see what happens with the next game. All right. Damion Downs to the Bundesliga. This is going to be an interesting one. 21-year-old Damion Downs' move to Southampton has been a disaster, with only 1 assist in 14 appearances. Okay. I was very skeptical of this move when it happened because he had just gotten promoted to Germany, to the Bundesliga with Köln. And there was a sense of like, why would you then go to the championship when you have this opportunity, And I thought he should have stayed at Köln, but it has not worked out for him at Southampton. And he even had to, he was getting abused by fans, and then he had to delete his Instagram and blah, blah, blah. Now it seems that both Hamburg and Bremen are interested in bringing him in, even though he's got a contract with Southampton until 2029. All right. It's a sense of maybe it was just a terrible fit, or maybe he was not a good player, but he got 11 goals in the 2 Bundesliga. So you think, the championship's it's better than the 2 Bundesliga, but it's not that much better. And now he's going to the Bundesliga, apparently, which is a top 5 league. I question it. But these are the options. It seems like Hamburg and Bremen are interested in bringing him in. None of Hamburg's strikers have been very prolific. They've gotten a lot of goals from midfield, but I think their top striker has like 3 goals in half a season. So none of these guys are exactly, winning the spot. Is he going to be able to make it in the Bundesliga? I don't know. I'm curious to see if this is going to work out. At Bremen, okay, Victor Boniface got injured, and he's out until pretty much May. And so they're trying to look at bringing him in as sort of cover for their other striker. It'll be interesting to see if this helps him, I don't know, come to life. It seems like he jumped from one level to a higher level. It didn't work out, and now he's going to even a higher level. I'm very skeptical of that. But maybe it's just it wasn't a good fit at Southampton, and I'll give him, look, every young player can make a bad decision sometimes. It happens. And sometimes you need to move on when it's very clearly not a good fit. And so maybe that's what he's doing here. And so we'll see. But if he goes to the Bundesliga, whether it's on a transfer or a loan, and he flops there, it's going to be hard to take him seriously. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Damion. But right now, he is far away from the U.S. They even said that in the transfer rumors. Oh, he wants to keep his World Cup hopes alive. My brother in Christ, you are behind Folarin Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, Haji Wright, Josh Sargent, and Patrick Agyemang at least. That's 5 strikers. Probably Brian White ahead of him too right now, to be honest. And we're only bringing 3 strikers to the World Cup. So for him to even be in the conversation, I mean, Poch played Agyemang over him at the Gold Cup. So for him to be in the conversation, right, to go to the World Cup, he would have to go light it up in the Bundesliga in the second half, which personally I find unlikely. Nick Vincent. Nancy is a good coach. He will get another chance in Europe. France, Belgium, Portugal, Netherlands, they would all know. Here's the problem. They don't take chances on MLS coach. And now somebody took a chance on him and he flopped miserably. Nobody's taking a chance on him now. Maybe the 4th division somewhere, 3rd division, maybe. But none of the top leagues in Europe are taking a chance on Nancy. I'm sorry. You can't go after being an MLS coach. You cannot, your first gig in Europe, you cannot fail miserably at it. You just won't get another chance. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Damion Downs. We'll keep track of this one. I don't have a strong opinion because I don't think he's close enough to the USMNT conversation for it to matter. But, he's a young American striker to watch, right? It will absolutely affect perception, Jose. Um, let's see. How will Nancy affect MLS? Yeah, it will affect it. Already, MLS coaches are not regarded because they don't really work. Look, MLS is fine for a young developing player, right? Like a teenager who's just getting a few pro minutes under his belt and getting some experience. And it's fine for not very good players who can't make it in Europe. And it's fine for retired players who are coming here at the tail end of their career. But there's not really if you've only ever managed in MLS, you do not know what it's like to manage in Europe. You do not have to deal with the everyday pressure in MLS of struggling to win, to avoid relegation, to have real pressure on you. And yes, some coaches do get fired in MLS, but it's usually after a long period of time of failure, right? Look at Peter Vermees at KC. How many years did KC have to suck? How many years did KC have to suck before they finally awkwardly got rid of Peter Vermees, right? Greg Vanney was bottom of the table in MLS when he got an extension, like worst team in the league, and he gave him a contract extension. That is absolutely true. Misael the drummer. All I'm saying are facts. All I'm saying are facts. Greg Berhalter came in to the Chicago Fire, okay? They came into the Chicago Fire, and what happened? He spent a bunch of money, brought in his guys, also as the general manager, got two places above the last time that Chicago fell in the league. And what happened? Hailed, what a great season. Let's go, Chicago. It's a different environment here. It's a completely different environment. So many coaches have gotten fired mid-fucking season the past couple of years, but no coaches have got fired mid-season when they were brought in that season. They were fired mid-season after they'd been there for a while already, and it clearly wasn't working, Misael the drummer. Please understand what I'm saying. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. Who was it? Leverkusen fired their coach after 3 or 4 games at the beginning of this season. That would never happen in MLS. You get a lot more leeway, a lot less pressure, and you get a lot more time. And you know what? You might be able to argue that for a style and system coach, that's a good thing. But it's just an environment where there is no pressure or very little compared to Europe, right? And I just gave you 4 examples right there, but keep protesting. Now, this is an interesting one. Keyrol Figueroa to Parma. Now, look. Exactly, Misael the drummer. You're making my point for me. No pro rel means teams can wait until the end of the season. Exactly. You can't do that in most of the world. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. You're making my point for me. Now, Keyrol Figueroa, who some people will remember, the 17-year-old striker from the he's 19 now, but he was at the under-17 World Cup, not last year in 25, but in 23. He is the son of Maynor Figueroa. He's a U.S. youth international. He has 7 goals in 9 Premier League 2 appearances this season, so they're reserve/academy team. And supposedly he's generating interest from Parma. Now, I think probably Keyrol Figueroa should move on. I think he's a talented young player, but he needs to go to a higher level than the Premier League 2. I'm just not sure that Parma is the way for several reasons. Number one, the jump from the Premier League 2 Academy League to a top 5 league is large. Number 2, they already have Matteo Pellegrino there, okay, the Argentine striker, and they have like 3 other strikers sitting behind him. So is he really even going to get minutes? I think for Keyrol, probably maybe go to a lower league like the Belgian league, for example, or even the Portuguese league, right? And not the big teams, like the smaller teams. Maybe maybe League One. Maybe League One. Go somewhere there first, see how you look at that level for 6 months, and then maybe Liverpool will go, okay, after 6 months of that, if you do really well, we can give you a chance at a higher level. But I do think he should be trying to leave Liverpool because he's at that age where, look, he's not going to play for Liverpool anytime soon, right? he may never play for Liverpool professionally. Okay. I mean, he might play for them like in a, 20 minutes in a cup game at some point, but never really be a regular. Personally, I don't think this is a Liverpool level player. But go on loan somewhere. And then when you do that, you sort of learn, you continue to develop in a tougher environment. And we also can kind of see what's his level now, because streaming, Premier League 2 games is almost impossible unless you go on the club's websites and try to find some sketchy link for it. So we'll see. I don't think this should happen because I just don't think this is the right move, but definitely at some point, Keyrol should be trying to get a move. Pete, is Roldan on the World Cup roster? Probably. I think if I was betting money, I mean, Poch called him the perfect player. Not so much for what he does on the field, to be honest. But yeah, he called him the perfect player. So if you want to bet money, he's probably on that roster. Brett, if we play back 3, we could take 5 or 6 center backs. You think Banks might sneak in if he plays well next couple of months, gets the March call-up? Yes, I think there's a good chance. If he continues playing well for Augsburg, which he has been, and continues to even get better, which, he should because he's been getting better as the season goes on, then he'll probably get the March call-up. I think we could take easily 6. If we're playing a back 3, we could easily take 6 center backs, okay? So these are the 6 that if I was king, like if I was Pochettino, these are the 6 I would take. Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, Noah Kai Banks, Tim Ream. I would have Alex Freeman as a center back. And then probably my 6th one would be Austin Trusty. Those would be the 6 I would take. I don't want Miles there. I don't want Walker there. I don't want Tristan Blackman there. But I will see. If he doesn't get that March call-up, Carter Vickers is injured, Tom Davison, so I don't think he's going to be there for sure. If he doesn't get that March call-up, I'd say it's very unlikely he's going to the World Cup. Very unlikely he's going to the World Cup. So, and look, there are people who make arguments about Banks saying, it's risky to bring a young center back to a World Cup. Well, Piero Hincapié played just fine for Ecuador, and he was only 1 year older than Banks. But it is true. It is risky because so much of that position as a center back is experience-based, right? And so we have to acknowledge that. But also anybody who's watching Noah Kai Banks can tell you already this kid is better on the ball than all of our center backs. All of our center backs. Okay. That's one side of the game. Obviously, defending is the other one. I think that defensively, he's getting better, but a lot of that is decision-making, positioning, and understanding the big picture of the game. I don't think he should start every World Cup game, but if he continues to develop and he looks good in March, there's no reason why he couldn't start one of the group games, right? Or maybe you bring him on for the last 20 minutes when we're defending a lead. I think if you're old enough, you're good enough applies across the board, whether you're a striker or a defender. And if you can start in the Bundesliga, then you should absolutely at least be in contention to start for the national team. And certainly you should be on the World Cup roster. That's my thoughts on Noah Kai Banks. Whether or not Pochettino agrees remains to be seen. So we'll wait and see. All right, guys, hit the like button if you haven't already. Thanks for hanging Sunday afternoon. This was fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about all of these topics that we covered here. And yeah, thank you to FanDuel for sponsoring the channel. Talk to y'all soon.